of a tornado warning. It's not really looking as notchy as it was before, and with those notches can sometimes come those spin-ups. Now we're seeing more of this bulging outwards, and that's more indicative of that straight line wind threat, which we've had this entire time. It's just we've also seen some more of that rotation on the leading edge of this too. So as this continues to bow outward like this, we'll most likely be transitioning into more of that straight line wind threat. Still very strong winds associated with this, 70, 80 mile per hour winds. And this is going to be moving into the city of Lawrence shortly. We're going to continue to watch this make its way into Douglas County. Once again, that tornado warning, that's for this, really this little section right here, southwestern Jefferson County, northwestern Douglas County. That goes until 3 p.m. So about 10 minutes left on that. And I haven't seen any chatter yet on the National Weather Service if they've been talking maybe about that at all. Any updates to it?
No, no updates just yet. No.
Okay, so still watching that closely there with that section, but now I think more so with that damaging straight line wind part of that storm.
That's the next line, the back side of it.
Okay, so how fast is that moving? Can we click on that and see if it's sped up or not yet? It's probably still about 40 miles an hour. Let's go ahead and put a track on the leading edge of that. Okay, about 40 miles an hour there. That'll put it in Lawrence just around 3 p.m., maybe a few minutes before that. Eudora, about 3:10 or so, and then that's going to be moving out of the area. So this is going to continue to make its way to the east, to southeast, at least the strongest parts of the wind here. Over the course of the next probably 30 minutes, and this is going to be making its way into Kansas City by that point. So we saw some reports coming out of Oskaloosa a little while ago about 65 mile per hour wind gusts, and here in Topeka we saw at least 70 to almost 80 here at the station. So let me put the velocity back on that and see if there's anything. Yeah, there still might be a couple little areas here kind of right along the Douglas County line that we're watching. And we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Like we've been mentioning though, if anything is there, it's going to be extremely hard to see. So treat this whole thing like a damaging wind event, really no matter where you're at, because even if you don't have that tornado warning for your area, you're going to be seeing some strong straight line wind gusts as well, and some locations could pick up stronger ones than others, but I think you should prepare for overall about 70 to almost 80 miles per hour wind gusts pretty much anywhere along this leading edge. So maybe southern Jefferson County, throughout Douglas County, even into southern Shawnee County, Osage County, and Franklin County too, as this is going to be moving in those directions through this afternoon. So we're going to stay on this as this is moving through. You can see we've got our Lawrence camera pulled up here in the corner as we're watching this approach from the west to the east here. And you can see that shelf cloud that we're looking at here. As we take a closer look, you've got the wind. This will be the leading edge of the wind for you here in Lawrence, but we also have that heavy rain shaft not too far behind it. So you definitely need to be in your shelters here. Douglas, Shawnee County still, at least the eastern part of it, Osage, Franklin County, because we do have this tornado warning, but those 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts, those are extremely strong and could be potentially destructive as well. You're going to want to be away from windows as this thing moves through, just about knocking on your doorstep there in West Lawrence. And as we continue to see this kind of bowing outward of this segment, that's more indicative of those straight line winds too. But still watching a couple areas just off to the east of Lecompton, Williamstown. You guys need to be in your shelters too, as those little couplets that we were watching, those reds and greens together, they're still present. They're just not, they're not super strong. So the potential's there that we could see something spin up briefly, but you're more likely looking at those really strong wind gusts as these continue to move through as the afternoon progresses. And these are moving decently fast, about 40 miles an hour. So that's going to put it mostly through Douglas County by the time we get to at least 3:30 or so. So if you do live anywhere within Douglas County, I think, what is that, Eli, another storm report?
Yeah, storm report from Perry, 70 mile an hour winds estimating. So.
Okay, so still those really strong wind gusts with this. Obviously, our atmosphere has a ton of energy in it with our heat and our humidity over the last several days. But we do have the leading edge of that now moving into Lawrence. We're starting to see near Clinton Lake, we could be seeing those stronger winds too as we are let's pull up our Lawrence camera again. We have our camera by the Oriad here. And you can really see those those really scary looking clouds here. This is our shelf cloud, but we also have the really heavy rain right behind it. There may be some hail embedded in there, but you can clearly see this thing approaching. And if once you see this this part of the cloud go over you, that leading edge of the shelf cloud, that's when things are really going to start getting windy for you. And we even have been seeing those stronger wind gusts kind of deeper back into the cell too, with that heavy rain associated with it. So that's now moving into the western side of Lawrence, approaching KU's campus as well, North Lawrence around I-70. And we're seeing some of those heavier pockets of reflectivity showing up in here too, around Shawnee and Douglas County. And we do have that flash flood warning in effect until 7:45 for Shawnee and, was it Jefferson County that was under?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so now we're seeing,
65-mile-an-hour winds at the Stampede Command Post.
okay. Hopefully, everybody who was out there camping at Stampede got somewhere safe before those winds hit, but still obviously seeing those stronger winds there too. But we're going to be watching this as it's moving to the south and east. Anywhere along this line, we're seeing some of those stronger winds. It's looking a little bit weaker off towards the west throughout like Dickinson County, Geary, Morris County too. That's more on the order of 60-mile-per-hour winds. Still pretty strong, but not as strong as this section that we're seeing here with this bowing segment moving through Jefferson County, Douglas County. The strongest of those winds hopefully are going to be out of our area here in a little bit, but I think that's going to mostly make its way through Douglas County by about 3:30 or so. So if you live in Baldwin City, heads up to my mother-in-law if you're watching. You guys need to be in your shelters as well because we're expecting those 70 to 80-mile-per-hour winds throughout Shawnee County, that were through Shawnee County, moving into Douglas County. And we could still see some stronger winds in northern Osage County, even expecting those into Franklin County as that storm continues its easterly, southeasterly progression. So let's take a closer look at that section in here too. Move it around just a little bit for us. So starting to see some of that heavy rain moving into Lawrence now. We're seeing, now if we look at that Lawrence camera too, we're seeing that look pretty impressive there as that shelf cloud's approaching KU's campus. We're obviously looking at Memorial Stadium here, but we'll be seeing that stronger wind moving in very, very shortly. Probably already seeing that on the west side of town here. This is exactly what came through Topeka not too long ago, where we were seeing those 70 to 80-mile-per-hour winds, and that's pushing in towards the city of Lawrence too. So we had that tornado warning. Either way, if you're not under that tornado warning, you're still going to be dealing with these really strong destructive winds too throughout Douglas County. And it's going to be hard to see or to tell much of anything if you do have that sort of rotation and that spin up, just because we have a lot of rain associated with this.
Yeah, severe thunderstorm warning for Osage and probably southern Shawnee County and Wabunsee. Just 60-mile-an-hour winds right now.
Okay, so that'll be, and we're getting a report from Carbondale, 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So that's on that southern edge of this cell, that bowing part of this throughout Douglas County. That's what's associated with that stronger push of wind that was as high as 70 to 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So 65 still really strong. It's just not quite as strong as what we've been seeing that moved through the capital city and now off towards the east here. So let's take another close look, see if we can see, I don't know. It's still looking not very impressive from a tornado standpoint here. So that's encouraging. But like we were mentioning, the threat for winds is, I think, almost more here just because it's affecting a whole lot more people. But you could clearly see some of those spin-ups happening on the leading edge of this, not trying to downplay that by any means. So you really do need to be in your shelters really throughout the eastern half of Douglas County, even in towards the western half. You guys are probably still seeing that heavy rain, and we're seeing those wind gusts as well.
Still 70 miles an hour for Jefferson County right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Douglas County, northeastern Lawrence reporting 60-mile-per-hour gusts. Yeah. Okay. So now that we're seeing that leading edge moving through, and that's all you're seeing there is that severe thunderstorm warning for Jefferson County being continued until 3:30. Okay, so we are seeing quite a lot of power outages with this too, unsurprisingly, with our strong straight line winds as well. So it's our local storm report for Oskaloosa. Sorry, we're starting to get a lot of them in here. This was at 2:57, a wind gust of 75 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So still seeing those really strong wind gusts with this thing as it's moving off towards the east. So if you live Jefferson, Douglas, Franklin County, you guys will need to be in your shelters here soon, but this is all moving off towards the east. Let's see if it's still 40 miles per hour or not here, just so I can put a better track on that for us.
35.
35, so it's slowed down. All right, let's zoom out just a little bit. Put that on there for us. Okay, so that's going to continue to move out, and it's going to move out pretty quickly. Douglas County, you're still going to be dealing with this for a little while, so Eudora, that's going to be heading your way by about 3:15. Baldwin City, you're probably in that 3:15, 3:20 range as well. And that's going to be moving off towards the east here, in towards the Kansas City metro by around 4 p.m.
And really quick, they have let that tornado warning expire.
Okay, so with that, we are going to go ahead and let our coverage come to an end here whenever they tell us to back in our booth. But we are still, just to recap, we're still watching these really strong straight line winds that have been moving through the area. We had that really strong wind event here in Shawnee County, now pushing into Douglas, Jefferson County, almost making its way through Douglas County or Jefferson County with the leading edge of this here. We could still see some stronger wind gusts though embedded in that heavy rain. We also have those storms that are off towards the west as well. Eskridge, you're dealing with this. Junction City up towards Manhattan getting some heavy rain. Still could see some higher wind gusts as well, about 60 to 70 miles per hour. But mostly those stronger winds are going to continue to move throughout Douglas County here within the next 30 minutes. So now that the tornado warning has expired, we're going to go ahead and return you back to your regular programming.
This has been a KSNT Storm Track Severe Weather Alert.
If you have a kid at that camp or you know somebody that may be running that camp, make sure they know what's going on. Make sure you touch base with them and make sure you move on and show them exactly what's going on. Cassie's got a little bit of a more zoomed in view. Let's go back to her.
Yes, I was trying to take a sample of the wind here so you
Yeah.
can kind of see wherever you see red and green come together isn't necessarily something you want to see, but we can kind of watch that area where we could see some of the more damaging winds occurring. So this is 6th Street here in Lawrence, and then down towards Clinton Parkway. So there's your Bob Billings there. And then we are watching out towards 23rd Street. Oh, we accidentally took, oh, there we go. Look at that shelf cloud coming out of the storm here. So Al's got a beautiful shot from our storm tracker. So that is the leading edge of a thunderstorm when you see a shelf cloud like that. So that is kind of where we're seeing that push of outflow coming into play. And we definitely have that storm structure.
Yeah, that thing's a wedge. I mean, if you think about it, it's a wedge. It's from the cold air creating that mini cold front that is dense and heavier than the warm, humid air surrounding it. So it acts like a plow almost and pushes that air up, and then it feeds it into the storm. And as that air rises, it creates this shelf cloud. Now, I was just looking at something on the radar. That is a beautiful shot. There's a little inflow right there just to the east of Clinton. It may be nothing. But, you know, some of our latest training was starting to tell us that some of these, when we have a line like this of thunderstorms, we start to look for these little notches where the air could be coming in a little bit heavier and maybe rotating just a little bit better. So that would be down, you know, south of Lawrence a little bit. There's a possibility of a little rotation there. There's also the possibility of a little bit of rotation over Lawrence itself. So this line, while it's not showing tremendous tornadic signatures, is showing these little pockets. And even if that thing's not rotating, that is still an area where we could have some of those faster winds. So even though we're focusing really, let me go out to the big picture, on Lawrence right now, you can see all across this line, there's these little notches where the air is coming in. The air is coming in a little bit faster. So this is the Kansas City radar. So this is moving away red. This is coming towards it. So you can see these little circulations developing, and that's where some of those pockets of faster winds could be gusting right now, like around McLeod, and heading towards Reno and Tonganoxie, and heading right through Lawrence and just south of Lawrence, probably getting close to Baldwin. So this whole line has some very aggressive pockets within it that'll be a little bit faster. It could cause some damage. All right, we're going to turn it over to Kevin right now.
Just a little bit of comfort to what you guys were talking about with Lawrence and school activities. I just got off the phone with the superintendent there, and he tells me that they are actually on 4-day weeks right now. So all activities, that is a moot point right now. No students are in harm's way. In fact, I talked to him, he and his family, they're seeking shelter, as you should too if you are in Douglas County right now. Also, after the storm passes, we should mention, if it's safe to do so, send us your pics at kshb.com, so we can give a better perspective of what you guys are seeing to our viewers throughout the day.
Thank you, and that's exactly why we have Kevin Diaz over there. We've got people working behind the scenes, because while Cassie and I are up here doing play-by-play and trying to show you everything that's going on, they're able to reach out to these affected areas and find out specifically what's going on, call some specific people, and get some feedback like that. So that is some great news. So as a parent, I'm sure Cassie feels the same way, that there are no activities that they know of that are outside right now. So hopefully those people that could be at pools or other things obviously are clearing out and heading out. Just remember, when you're out in the open, you are so vulnerable to these storms. And it's Friday night, and this is coming in.
Yeah,
and
put that lightning back on there just to remind people, you know,
exactly.
Even if you're not dealing with that heavy
Right.
rain and that wind threat, look at all of the lightning that's coming out of this. So we do.
And the positive strikes.
Yes.
The stronger strikes, the ones with more energy, the ones that start nearly at the top of the storm and come all the way down. Nearly a quarter of these strikes that are around 1,200 are positive strikes. And it is the front edge of the storm that's having the most strikes. And that's great. And we've really made an emphasis the last couple of days to talk more about lightning and the fact that we're outside. So even if these storms aren't near you yet, remember, lightning can hit up to 5, maybe 10 is kind of a reach, but up to 5 miles ahead of the particular storm. All right,
And
we're going to turn it over
Mike,
to Dia
just
for a
really
second.
quick, if you were planning on going to Country Stampede, the big festival out in Topeka, they started clearing the campgrounds out, but only about 20 minutes ago. This is a huge
too late.
festival. Thousands of people normally attend. We're talking about RVs, a lot of cars, a lot of people out in the open. So again, if you were planning on heading out there tonight, you do not want to do that. They're clearing the campgrounds right now.
All right, I'm seeing something that may be a little bit of concern, and bring Cassie in here. And we're seeing some storms develop out ahead of this in the Northland. You can see in Platte County, just to the east of KCI. Let's go up there. And you can see some of these storms. We're going to keep an eye on these because they're out ahead of that other line, and they are out there in the fresh, untempered with, untouched air, that warm, moist air, and they've got it all to themselves. So they can feed off that. So these are growing rather quickly. We'll keep an eye on those for those of you who live in Plattsburgh and over towards Lilly. Right now, nothing severe, but the potential is getting there. Just want to let you know that's happening. We're also seeing another cell develop just to the north of Leavenworth, but this is the line that we're still worried about the most, the one that's coming through Douglas County, Jefferson County, about to cross over into the western parts of Johnson County and also Leavenworth County. So we've had reports of 80-mile-per-hour winds. When it was farther back, we've had reports of 60-mile-per-hour winds.
60 was the latest out of Lawrence.
That's kind of a good trend.
Yes.
But again, this air, I mean, I wish I knew, our temperature right now has got to be in the mid-90s. Or maybe it dropped a little bit because of the cloud cover that came in, but we hit the mid-90s earlier today.
The soup is on.
Yeah,
That
so-
is certainly there. And with those storms that are firing out towards Platte County, if you're in Smithville Lake area, if you have friends or family in the Smithville Lake area, go ahead and give them a call and give them a heads up. They are about to get poured on when it comes down to it, and probably looking at some healthy lightning. So that's our KCK Skycam as we're looking out towards those turbulent skies. Definitely watching the Northland for storm development at this hour, but we're continuing to really watch Douglas County. I think the good news here, Mike, is the storm structure is not quite as defined. So you're not seeing that beautiful kind of bow echo that creates those 80-mile-per-hour winds. And yes, our latest reading out of Lawrence was a 60-mile-per-hour wind. I do have Storm Tracker. Al, I think he pulled over and parked because he says, I'm not driving into that.
Smart, Al.
Yeah,
Very
smart man.
In fact, Al, if you're there,
Just
point
east of Lawrence, so.
point the car toward the wind, not perpendicular or parallel with the wind, not perpendicular, okay? I'm sure you knew that, but I just felt comfortable saying that. I just wanted to make sure I said that. Peak measured wind gust at Lawrence so far is 55. Now, the estimated was 60, so the peak is 55. That's good. That shows that, as you mentioned, the storm's not quite as volatile. Plus, if you just look at the radar return, we barely see purple. We don't see any black, which would be the highest level, which is where we have the hail. So we're seeing minimal purple. So this thing, right now, it's going through a little bit of a phase where it's calming down just a little bit, but still very dangerous. It's just
Mike, I do want to jump in really quick. Topeka police are asking people who live in that area to stay at home because although the storm may have moved through for the most part, emergency workers are dealing with numerous trees down. They're down power lines. There's a ton of water out there, and you know what that means for your safety. They have some other weather-related issues, including poor visibility. There's still a lot of wind and rain out there. So if you live in Topeka, go ahead and stay in your safe place, continue to take shelter, and let emergency crews get out there and do the work they need to. And for the people who are still in the path of the storm, plan on riding it out for a little bit longer just to make sure our emergency workers can get out there and get everything cleaned up.
And this is the first wave. So
Yes.
Definitely want to stay home here. And we have thunderstorms severely warmed all the way out to Great Bend, Kansas. So this is the first wave. We'll probably take a little bit of a break, but then there is a secondary line that's going to be impacting us as we head through the evening.
New warning just issued until 4 o'clock for Johnson, Leavenworth, Miami, and Wyandotte counties in Kansas. Radar indicated 60-mile-per-hour winds. We know the storm did push a 55-mile-per-hour gust through Lawrence. Radar indicated 1-inch hail, which could cause some damage. So this is a severe thunderstorm warning. This is the new edge you see here in the yellow. So by the time we get to 4 o'clock, this is moving into our western neighborhoods in the metro. To go along what Jefferson, let's see, power lines down at 305th and 35th in Perry. So there's some power lines down in Perry, 50-mile-per-hour winds in Winchester, significant damage to trees, homes, vehicles, many without power, many power lines down across Perry. So right where we were pinpointing where we thought the strongest winds were, sure enough, that's exactly where they went through. And I hope the folks in Perry were in their safe places when that happened. So we've already seen some damage from this particular storm when it was showing a greater tenacity or greater potential for those strong storms. Now, as it comes in, let's talk about some of the events. We desperately need some rain. This is going to bring us some rain. So hopefully, but it's going to rain hard. And the problem is our ground, if it hasn't been rained on for a while or if you haven't watered, a lot of that's going to run off. So there could be a lot of standing water moving with these storms as they come through. And that's part of the reason why I'm sure Topeka police is saying stay home because of the same thing. That's the same storm that's going to move through here. So we've got this severe thunderstorm warning. You can see it goes all the way to Spring Hill, Overland Park, almost to Leawood, not quite across the state line to Waldo or on the other side to Fairview, just kind of clipping Shawnee there, moving into the western parts of Shawnee, all the way up to Leavenworth. So all of these areas, if you live anywhere near there, it's time. It's time to execute the plan. It's time to find your safe spot. It's time to bring everything in before it gets to you. We tend to look at lightning, and I want to, that's good. So one of the things we do with lightning is it kind of shows the intensity of the storm. And when Cassie and I last looked at the lightning, this thing was pumping out nearly 1,200 bolts of lightning in 15 minutes. Now it's down to about 700. It means it's weakening a little bit. Does it mean it's over? Absolutely not. In fact, let's toss to Cassie right now with some more information.
That's right. So we are seeing portions of the metro now included in that loop, in that warning. So I just wanted to put some times in front of you. We're looking at areas like Gardner by the 4 o'clock hour, out towards Shawnee by about 4:30. So watching this thunderstorm kind of push in right up to that evening commute. We do have some fresh video in from a viewer in Lawrence, and you can see that kind of hanging structure from that cloud. So a little bit of a lowering there. We definitely have enough of some rotation. You can definitely see some lowering there. So this is most likely right along one of those leading edges of the thunderstorm where we have that kind of straight line wind impact, kind of storing up a little bit of rotation.
I think you see a little funnel cloud right there.
That's definitely, right
there
in the middle there.
Cloud. That looks like that's probably right near, that's probably the turnpike, I'm guessing, or 70.
Does he have a location on that tweet?
I didn't see that.
It's just Douglas County, yeah, but we don't have a location. of where he is driving. So hard to tell, but definitely right along that leading edge of that storm where we are seeing those really strong winds. You can see that outflow, you can see that lowering, but we are watching this. So we are dealing with that concern still for this destructive thunderstorm warning that continues to hold into Douglas County. You can see our storm tracker is right on the edge of that, all the heavy rain coming down over downtown Lawrence, but that wind threat now pushing into areas like DeSoto, past Tonganoxie, approaching the Gardner area, approaching areas like Frisbee, Grandview on the Kansas side, out toward Lackman's. There's definitely a quick little shower that's starting to come up here, so we are watching that. I'm going to put another time on it for everybody so we can kind of watch. We're really watching the potential for damaging winds moving through the metro here.
Can someone tell me when that video was taken that we just showed? Because we're seeing a little near Linwood, as you mentioned, and just Eudora, Clearview, seeing a little hot spot there of potential rotation, a little bit, maybe right along the river, right north of K10 between 70. I don't know. It's just a small area there that just kind of caught my eye as the winds are picking up in this particular area. You can see radar estimated at about 51 miles per hour. So that's a small area that we'll continue to watch also. That's why I was wondering if that person, if that was, maybe 30 minutes old or something, that could have been, back what moved just north of Lawrence and now continues to move along the river as we see with the radar right here. Sorry to interrupt you there, Cassie.
Oh, no, that is perfectly fine. I do think we have some more video that we can kind of show of areas through Lawrence and some of the wind that they got hit with. So this is 6th Street in Lawrence, and you can see that those trees are just almost being pushed over at the top there. So very strong gusty winds. We did have radar estimated up to 60 mile per hour winds and some reports out towards the Lawrence airport at 55 miles per hour. But you can definitely see that's the strong wind that is heading for the 435 loop here, and it will be impacting right in the next hour. So that's kind of still why we're here talking to you about this, because we do have that concern for destructive winds as this line of thunderstorms starts to approach the metro.
Let me show you the radar real quick. Near DeSoto, that spot I was just looking at, and you can see a little bit of a notch there, as we talked about, a little bit of an inflow notch there. So that's an area that could have a wall cloud right now, possibly. It could be that same area in the cloud we just showed with that video. You can see a little bit of notch, it's a storm, and you can definitely see the reds and the greens right next to each other, with the reds moving away and the greens moving toward the radar, which is way over here in Pleasant Hill. I use the Kansas City radar. Let's see if the Topeka radar is showing much difference. Still looking at same thing right around DeSoto. So I'm thinking the strongest part of this storm is about to move into DeSoto. And so hopefully those people are now in their safe spot listening to us, via radio or via their phone. And this is an area we're going to keep an eye on. Let me put a quick track on this and see where it's going really quick. So that's going to move towards Edwardsville, Lenexa, Shawnee, and Merriam. So that's going to concern me more. Concern us, not more, but it's going to definitely be something we're going to keep an eye on, because that is moving into a more densely populated area. Not that we don't care about you, DeSoto, we do. That's why I mentioned you. But as it gets closer to the metro, that may be the area that has the fastest winds.
So over there in Douglas County and also in Johnson County around K10, lots of heavy rain, right? A lot of vehicles are being pulled over on the side. What about wind? What kind of factor will that play in all of this right now in that area? I know we're talking about this storm making its way eastward, but is that still a factor right now, or just the heavy rain, Mike and Cassie?
Yeah, the heavy rain, absolutely. It's going to pond. I mean, look how heavily the rain is coming down right there. And that is definitely not going to evacuate quickly. The drains just can't handle that much rain that quickly. So yes, we're definitely going to have standing water for those that are going to be out trying to drive. Thankfully, all those semis you see right there have pulled over, as has our storm tracker, to let the storm pass. Yes, there's definitely going to be torrential rain for 15 minutes, possibly a half hour, maybe even up to an hour. And the longer it goes, the more that water is going to pool or pond, and the more likelihood we're going to have of hydroplaning of people, especially as we get closer to it's Friday. People may be kicking off work early, wanting to get home. A lot of people commute on 70 and 10 between Lawrence and Kansas City. This is a case where I would say, stay put, wait it out. Ride it out. Don't drive west right into it. Don't drive east towards us, because you'll just be sitting in it the whole time as it's moving at 40 miles per hour, and you shouldn't be driving much faster than that, if even that fast, when it's raining that heavily. So just sit tight. I know it's Friday. I know you want to get out and get your plans, but your plans may be altered anyway because of the rain that's out there right now. So Kevin, to go back to that, just sit and wait it out as this thing continues to move through. And it's going to take it a good hour and 15 minutes to completely clear, maybe an hour 30 to completely clear your neighborhood. So that's what we're looking at for a delay. Now for the baseball games, we've got Monarchs. We've also got the Royals, both around 7:10. This should be out of those areas by then, but you'll definitely want to call ahead and see if they're still going to play the game. I heard, this is just what I've been hearing, the Monarchs are kicking around, canceling tonight's game or postponing it and creating a doubleheader tomorrow. Now, it's less likely the Royals would do that, but it's something we're definitely going to keep an eye on.
Now, Mike, the Breakaway Festival is also in Kansas City tonight. Kevin's probably on the phone trying to get in touch with some other people and check in, but I definitely know that people are asking to hold off and make sure, let's figure out what's what in terms of some of these events that are scheduled to happen, particularly those that are outside.
Right, and if they have tents, Dia, those tents can't handle the 50, 60 mile per hour winds that are possibly coming through. So hopefully they're either taking them down or they're moving people away from those tents or they're sandbagging them like crazy to try to hold them down. I would personally take them down if you can. If they're too big and you don't have time, then just get away from them as the storm comes through. They will act like a kite, they will grab that wind, and then they will act like a sail, and they will possibly take off. So that is something else we have to consider. Not only the wind, but also the lightning out ahead of the storm that could be around those metal rods that are lightning rods that are holding those tents up. So you got to watch out for that. Cassie?
Speaking of wind, I wanted to take you out towards areas just to the east of Lawrence. So what you're looking at in our storm tracker video right on the side of the screen to me is where the heaviest rain is. So that is the worst rain that you're going to see right now. And this is out towards Lawrence. So this is northwest Lawrence around 3 p.m. as that line kind of moved through there. You can see those trees really being pushed around. I wouldn't be surprised if we've got a lot of tree limb damage out towards Lawrence right now, especially right between that 6th Street and Bob Billings area. There's some tree damage that we've got in Topeka, so that's kind of the beginning stages of where the storm started to intensify. But I want to take you to my computer and show you some of these samplings of the wind that we're seeing out towards the Eudora area. If you're in Hesper, DeSoto, we do have some very strong winds coming for you. So some of the samples that we're seeing out there have areas into the 60 to 70 mile per hour wind range right along K10. So K10 looks to be kind of holding on to the concerning wind right now. There's some small hail, so that's at least good to see. No damaging hail concerns, but we are seeing that out of Lawrence, some hail coming down. But this won't be damaging hail, just the fun stuff that you can safely videotape and get to us here. And this is hail from Lawrence at this time. But if we can pull my computer screen up, I really want to show people where this concerning wind threat is. So you can see, I'm going to clear this, areas into Eudora, Fall Leaf, Hesper, DeSoto. You've got some very strong wind coming for you. And as we sample some of that, we're going to be dealing with 64 mile per hour wind, 70 mile per hour wind, and this is K10. So this is an east wind, so it's going to be a back wind on people who are heading towards Kansas City, and it's going to be coming at you if you are heading away from Kansas City. So we're definitely dealing with some concerning wind for motorists along K10 at this hour, as well as that heavier rain that is coming into town, Mike.
Yeah, let's put a storm track on that. I was just looking at the storms up north that are continuing to get more intense. So I want you to know in the Northland, I'm still watching your storms. They are not strong to severe yet. They're strong, but they're not severe yet. But I am watching those. And let's put a quick track on this. And it's moving, what, about 40? So, yeah, Lenexa, it is 325. It is going to be there within the next 10, 15 minutes. Same thing in Shawnee, Marion, possibly 20 minutes, Overland Park, same thing, Mission. So you have about 20 minutes before the strongest part of the storm that has the potential for wind damage, 60, 65 miles per hour, comes through this area. It's coming right down the river, but the river jogs a little bit north, so this thing will come down more likely just north of K10 and intersect Lenexa. The first as it moves away from Eudora and DeSoto and possibly just to the south of Bonner Springs. Let's send it over to you guys.
Energy latest update right now, about 500 customers are in the dark. We're talking about more than 1.5 million customers served, I'm sorry, because there are more than 500 active outages. Also, when you came to us last, I was on the phone with the leadership from the Kansas City Monarchs. They say, stay where you are, but as of right now, the game is scheduled to go. First pitch is around 7 o'clock. However, they are monitoring the weather system. They're watching you guys right now as we speak, Cassie and Mike. And should something change, they may then have to rethink things and maybe possibly do a doubleheader tomorrow. But the game for the Monarchs is still going on at 7 as long as this storm passes. There's tarp on the ground at Legends Field right now.
Just one more thing on those active outages. Yes, there were 500 affecting just over 31,000 customers in Kansas City. So we want to make sure we get that clarity there. But again, with some of these events, we're just going to have to wait, hold tight, and see how the weather's going.
Best advice is to stay home or stay in your safe place right now as the storm passes.
I talked with some spokespeople over at Kansas City International Airport. They're heading to the terminal. They said there's a lot of lightning out there. Not sure how that's going to impact upcoming flights, so we're working to see if there's any impacts at the airport as well.
I want to dovetail on what you said. I pulled up our power outage map. Now, it's a little bit behind what you were talking about because we don't see any outages in Kansas City. But look at, what is that, Shawnee County, where Topeka is? More than 10,000 people without power. But that's also where they had the possible 80-mile-per-hour wind. Now, they had the 60-mile-per-hour wind in Jefferson and Douglas. We're looking at maybe 100 to 1,000 people without power. But I wouldn't be surprised as this storm moves to the east, we're going to start seeing some of these other counties become blue. And when the power goes out, you're going to lose us on TV, but you're not going to lose us on social media. We will still be there. We will still be putting stuff out on Twitter. We'll be putting stuff out on Facebook. I need to get double clarity if we're on our YouTube channel right now, our website. We are on our YouTube channel right now, so we have so many other ways all right, we're going to confirm that. We're not sure yet, but if not, we have those other ways to get you the information you need as these storms come through and likely put out some more damaging winds and likelihood of losing some power. So I'm looking at that as a pretty nice shaft of rain right there that is putting down, and that's why we're going to be dealing with some of the ponding that we're going to have. All right, let me see. I've got something.
That's our Nebraska Furniture Mart camera, so that's probably looking right at the storms that are pushing through the DeSoto area, and that's where we're seeing some of that wind concern. So I do have the wind sampled along I-70 versus K10. Winds along I-70 around Bonner Springs are sitting at about 50 to 60 miles per hour, but it's the stronger wind south on K10 that's more concerning to me. So we've got those nearly 70 mile per hour wind samplings that are happening right around DeSoto. The leading edge of this wind concern is Bonner Springs to Frisbee and then south to Gardner at this time. So watching that concerning wind as it starts to approach areas along 35 as well as the 435 loop. And when this does hit the 435 loop, the concern here is that it's going to be a crosswind for motorists, which is a little bit more dangerous to be dealing with. And those winds are holding. I mean, we have seen 50 to 70 mile per hour winds being sampled since Topeka, Mike. So this is definitely holding on to the strength when it comes to the wind threat for us this evening.
Yeah, and radar's indicating possibly up to 70 miles per hour. I pulled up a different product because even though the strongest part of the storm is past parts of Jefferson and Douglas counties, that doesn't mean your threat ended. Here's a look at how much rain fell. And we have 3 inches. Let's see what Perry, where we already know there is considerable damage, more than 2 inches. Grantville, this is radar estimated nearly 3 inches. Meridian, nearly 3. So that is causing flooding problems. We have a flash flood warning, which means you need to act immediately if you live near a creek or a stream that rises rapidly whenever we have some very strong storms roll through. Flash flooding takes just as many lives as any other weather threat out there. So even though the storm is past you, and we're going to keep tracking as it comes into Kansas City, we have that flood threat in Jefferson and also in Douglas County until at least 8:30. So another 5 hours or so. So make sure you seek higher ground if you live in a low area where water could accumulate. Cassie?
And 2 updates for you. So that destructive severe thunderstorm warning has been lifted. So we're at least not seeing the 80-mile-per-hour wind capacity impacting the 435 loop, but we will see damaging 60-mile-per-hour winds impacting the 435 loop. And our second update is for our Northlanders. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning for you that includes areas like Tracy at Farrellview. This is just north of Weatherby Lake. And while we are watching that, also approaching the 169 out towards Trimble. This is centered over Smithville Lake at this time. So remember, about 30 minutes ago, I said if you got friends or family that are out on the lake this Friday, give them a call. If you haven't given them a call, give them a call now, please, because they are definitely dealing with a lot of concerning rain and thunder right now. But we are watching that Platte City, south towards Weatherby Lake, and then out towards areas into Smithville Lake.
Right. We promised we would keep an eye on you, Northland, and we are. So thank you for that update, Cassie. And that one has turned severe. And that's a wind event. I looked at it. There's not much hail with this particular one. This is going to be more of a wind event with that particular storm as it moves off. Let me broaden out the picture here and show you the areas that we're working with right now. We've got a severe thunderstorm warning, Platte County, you can see right there, and also in Clay County. We've got Leavenworth, we've got Wyandotte, we've got Johnson, we even have Miami. And all these severe thunderstorm warnings for those areas in Kansas go until 4 o'clock. So we've got about another 27 minutes. The one in the Northland, about 4:15. So we've got about another 45 minutes. In fact, that looks like, is that from Sporting State? No, that's from NFM. That's from Nebraska Furniture Mart, if I remember right. And you can see that ominous looking cloud coming your way. The tent is a little green, a little turquoise, which means there could be some small hail in there, but we know for sure you're about to get blasted at the Kansas Speedway with some really gusty winds. And look at all of that open area for that wind to blow through. There's nothing to slow it down once it hits the ground and starts to fan out. So that's why we don't want you to be out in the open when this storm rolls on through.